Hey, what's up guys, Totallydubbed here, and today I'm doing a video review on the JIAYU S3 smartphone. First of all, I'd like to thank PandaWill for actually reaching out and sending me this out for review. A link will be in the description below where you can buy this phone for $200, which equates to around £125 to £130. So I've been using this phone pretty much daily for the last month, and I've been extremely impressed with it. First of all, I'm going to run through its specs, and also whilst going through the specs, talk about how the specs have been for me. So let's go straight into it. So first of all, the Android system is Android 4.4.4, as you can be able to see on this sticker over here. It comes with all the specs. I'll link down the specs in the description below as well. You can find them on PandaWill's website. So Android 4.4.4 is being good. It's been upgraded periodically since I've had the phone, but one thing I have found as a problem with the software that's come with it is that it's all sort of a Chinese based ROM. Now the ROM that came with it came with the phone sent from PandaWill, which is apparently flashed prior to being sent to you, was causing me a lot of problems. Now the problem is that basically when I had Wi-Fi and Bluetooth enabled at the same time, it seemed to be disconnecting quite a lot. Right now I'm in airplane mode just because I don't want to get a cold during this review, but I had Wi-Fi and Bluetooth on at the same time and it was disconnecting. Either Bluetooth would disconnect or Wi-Fi would disconnect every now and then. A perfect example of it would be when I was on Instagram, going down my feed, it would suddenly disconnect Wi-Fi and reconnect it, be it onto the 2.4 GHz or the 5 GHz frequencies. It's a very weird issue, and then I looked on XDA developers, and I'll link down in the description below my chain of conversations with a few members on XDA developers, and they're very helpful and very kind in guiding me to the right direction as they normally do on XDA. And what I had to do is flash the ROM, flash the phone with a new ROM, and the ROM I flashed was an official JIAYU S3 smartphone ROM. But the reason I'm mentioning this is because obviously if you're an average user, then you might not feel comfortable with flashing it. It was very simple, although I was a bit hesitant at first, but it was very simple to do. But as you can see, when it comes to a wireless update, for example, it comes with all this Chinese text. And of course you can Google Translate it, which I did, and when you hit download, it doesn't actually download and it seems to freeze. So there are still some underlying problems with the software, so you should bear that in mind before buying this. I would say you shouldn't be an experienced user, but you should be someone who should be comfortable of flashing the phone or actually using the phone, generally speaking. Apart from that, apart from the actual updating of the phone or the software version, like it came in Chinese and everything like that, is extremely good. The integration with Android is so well done. What I like about the phone is that it can really be removed of bloat quite easily, just due to using titanium backup, for example. What I really liked about the phone is, as you can see, of course I have titanium backup, that it comes pre-rooted. Now this is a huge thumbs up from me. So the way to do this is go into security and go into super user and enable. Super user gives you root functionalities, and it comes out the box with root functionalities, and that's absolutely fantastic from JIAYU to do that. Not many phone manufacturers do it, simply because they're like, you might damage your device, when in reality the only way you're going to damage your device is to, ridiculously clock the CPU or something like that, so it burns the chip out, which is very rare anyway before it crashes. And other than that, it gives you full root functionalities, which mean that I could use titanium backup to back up my apps and restore my apps, which is something really useful for me. So out the box, it's brilliant that it came with that, and on top of that it comes with certain different apps that come pre-installed. Of course you can remove them if you want, for example with the use of titanium backup, but for example you had a themes thing. So the themes, the original one that comes with this has this weird sort of Chinese theme, but as soon as you hit the system theme, it turns it almost like a Google phone, a stock Google phone. Of course it has a little bit of differences here and there, but it feels like a stock Android experience, which is exactly what you'd like from a phone like this. You don't want it to feel over bloated. So the software experience was fantastic. Apart from the updating part and the fact that I had to flash a different ROM, it wasn't a problem with me, but I can see it being a problem for your average daily user. For example, if my mum were to buy the phone, which very possible for her to do so, then she wouldn't feel comfortable doing that. That's why I'm mentioning it. Now moving on to the CPU, the octa-core 64-bit 1.7 GHz CPU with the GPU of a Mali T760. Now this thing absolutely absolutely flies. It is so fluid when it comes to using it, be it on games, be it on applications, be it on just opening up the app drawer, going into settings, whatever it might be. The phone is so snappy and so brilliant. On top of that, it has 3 GB of RAM, which you'll be able to see over here. You can see right now it says available 1.64 GB, but the actual the RAM, having the RAM there, and on top of that with the octa-core and the GPU, it's brilliant. The experience is absolutely phenomenal. As you can see, also the colors are brilliant, and therefore the screen is also very nice. Now that kind of links in with the GPU, that's why I'm mentioning it, but what I'm really impressed was the speed and responsiveness of this phone. For being a £130 phone, you know, I looked at the specs, I said, okay, it might be just over bloating it, but no, the specs are phenomenal. Really, really good, really do compete with top flagship phones out there. I'm not going to show you synthetic benchmarks because I don't really believe in them in terms of phones. And on top of that, I'm not really going to show you me playing a game because that really doesn't show you anything. All I can say is that from previous experience, from a gamer's perspective, in terms of me being gaming on Android, gaming on a PC, benchmarking on the PC, being an honest reviewer, I can tell you that this phone is a really fast phone and it really flies through applications and is really nice to use. Anything you want to open, it will do. On top of that, I was using this on power saving mode, which it says intelligent power saving standby, almost all the time, which meant that it was even still downclocking the CPU sometimes or not using all the cores, and still was absolutely blazing through everything. So in terms of performance, you're not going to have to worry about this. It's a £130 phone, but damn, it flies through everything. It's absolutely phenomenal how they've done this. Now onto its storage and the actual internal memory. So the internal memory comes with 16 GB of space, but that can also be expanded via a external SD card up to 64 GB. So I'm going to show you that underneath, which is can be found on the removable cap over here. And you remove it and you'll be able to see you can get external memory. So the external memory I've got over here is U3 32 GB SanDisk card, and it's absolutely brilliant. When it's transferring files in and out of the phone, it's so instantaneous, whereas in previous Oppo or Samsung phones that I've had, or even iPhones, it takes a while, whereas this was so instantaneous it felt like it was a second SSD in there for some reason. I don't know why, but the mounting of this phone was brilliant. Speaking about the mounting of the phone, there was one thing I noticed. When I mounted the phone, the internal SD card wouldn't show up, but the external SD card would show up. It was a bit of a weird thing, I don't know why, but anyway, just thought I should mention that. Even though I plugged it in, the drivers installed fine, everything worked, and I can transfer files in and out. It's just that the external SD card worked, the internal didn't. So just bear that in mind when buying the phone. Seeing as I've opened the phone, I also want to mention, of course, it's got removable battery and it's got dual SIM card functionalities. Dual SIM card functionalities is brilliant for people that are in business users or people that like having 2 different SIM cards for 2 different purposes, and both of them are also 4G LTE enabled, which means you can have a 4G enabled SIM card and use it on this phone to the full effect. So that's absolutely brilliant as well, the fact that it's 4G enabled, LTE, 3G, 2G, and has 2 SIM card functionalities. Flawless design. The back cover as well is removable, as you can see, as you could probably tell anyway, and it's nice to see that you got removable functionality. Now, I must say that the case, the actual feeling of this case is a little bit plasticky. If you listen out, there's a little bit of flex that occurs. It's not much, but it's just a little bit of flex that you can hear on the plastic. To me, it really doesn't bother me, and again, I don't know why Samsung changed their design, but anyway, it's just something I should mention, just in case you're wondering. There's a little bit of flex, but to me, I absolutely couldn't care less because it's a removable back, and that's more important to me than having a fixed IP67 certified waterproof case of some crap like that. Anyway, so I like that. If you're wondering what this is not included with the phone, this is just for my amplifier. Now, as I've got the phone out over here as well, I also want to mention its build quality. Now the build quality is sensational. It's a brick. It's really well built. I've dropped this a few times accidentally, and some people have dropped it off my hands, and it hasn't had a single scratch or a dent or anything on it. It's the first time I've actually used a phone without a screen protector, and that's because it has Gorilla Glass 3 on it, which is absolutely brilliant. So it's got Gorilla Glass, so you're not going to have to really worry about it dropping. It's really sturdy, and well, what can I say? Try and scratch it, then, you know, achievement unlocked for you, because I really couldn't scratch it and I couldn't really cause it any problems. So do feel happy that, you know, you've got a nice glass there. Now, in continuing with the build quality, on the right hand side you've got the volume up and down and the power on and off. You've got the jack at the top. On the left you've got nothing, and underneath you've got the micro USB connection for charging and connecting up to your PC. The build quality, as I said, is really good. I would have liked it to be a little bit more rounded on the sides because it fits a bit better, but using the phone even one-handed for me, I felt very comfortable to do so. The design, as I said on my unboxing video, reminds me of an iPhone at the top, almost like a HTC over here, and an Oppo at the bottom, and the bottom touchscreen buttons remind me somewhat of a Samsung. So it's a bit of a mix of all. Obviously, I don't know if they're going to get any copyrights or whatever, but all I can say is the design is good and I liked it. The bezels are quite thin. If I just turn on the display over here, you'll be able to see that the bezels at the top are just at the right size, and the bottom over here are just enough for you to feel comfortable to touch the on-screen buttons over here. The bezels on the side over here are very thin, so it's very nice. So if I go ahead and unlock the phone, you can see the screen. Now the screen is an IPS 5.5 inch display that runs at 1080p with a PPI of 400. Now that is really impressive for its price especially. The screen, I found the viewing angles to be sensational, despite there being a little bit of glare. As you can see, if I try and wave my hand, you probably can see it in the background there. There is a little bit of glare on the screen, but when it came to direct sunlight, I turned up the brightness and it's fine. You can see right now I use it as I usually use my phone at 75–80% brightness. Turn it up to 100, it's really bright. What I found that for night users, the minimum brightness you might find that might not be that dark enough, so you might want to use an app to make it even darker, but to me it wasn't a problem because I never used my phone really in that sort of mode. Now, speaking about its screen, one thing that I was really impressed with was the actual personalization, mirror vision. Mirror vision came with different functionalities. If I go over here and put it on user mode, I can really calibrate the screen to however I want. And it's really the most sort of functionalities I've ever come across on a smartphone. The amount of customization you can have on the screen's temperature or whatever it might be is absolutely flawless. I really like these functionalities, despite me using it on Vivid all the time because I was happy with that. I just found it very impressive. You can see over here you've got dynamic contrast. You can be able to see me turning it on and off, and you can see a huge difference in terms of the color. If I just tilt it over here, you'll be able to see the dynamic contrast coming actually into effect, and I used it with dynamic contrast on. So I've got to say, very impressed with the actual functionalities of the screen itself and the fact of how good it looks. It does have a slight blue tinge, which is to be expected in a screen like this. However, it's not too distracting, as in it's not too blue, like AMOLED blue, but it has a blue sort of tinge to it. I did compare it to other phones like the Oppo Find 7 with an IPS display, and it had the similar sort of blue color. So do bear that in mind if you're going to buy this. It does have a slight blue color hue to it, and that's just natural for its type of display. So display was very impressive. In sunlight as well, it was very impressive, and just generally because it's a 1080p screen on 5.5 inches, it's really nice to look at, and in terms of browsing, it's very beautiful. Finally, I'd like to mention its camera. Now the camera has a Sony lens inside. It's a Sony sensor, now IMX214 to be more specific. And it's got a 13 megapixel camera at the back with dual LED flash and a 5 megapixel camera at the front. I felt that these cameras weren't that amazing. They were good, don't get me wrong, they were good, but they felt a little bit hit and miss sometimes. It wasn't the best camera I've come across, and it's definitely not a camera that I would say, you know, you could take some really nice high-res shots on there. There you go, that's me in the background. So the front camera I felt was decent for selfies, but as you can see, it feels a little bit blurred when shaking around. Of course, this is not some sort of professional camera of any sort, but in comparison to other cameras in the market out there, I felt that this was just a little bit not as good as others that I've come across. For example, the Lumia range, Samsung range, HTCs, the Oppo, and all that. I felt that it was just a little bit lower than the Oppo or a OnePlus One sort of camera. So a little bit disappointing on the camera front, but still good. Now I'd like to also mention its connectivity and its battery life. Now its connectivity was good. As I said, it's got 2.4 and 5 GHz functionalities on Wi-Fi. It's got Bluetooth 4.0 enabled as well, which is brilliant when it comes to connecting for you know, saving your battery or using different sort of devices. It's brilliant to have that on top of that. And of course, as I said before, it's got its good functionalities with its SIM card. Now its battery life is something that you might be wondering about, and yes, I have got a screenshot of the battery life. So you'll be able to over here to see that I was on 15% remaining with 1 day and 20 hours of usage with 3 hours and 30 minutes of screen on time. That for me is absolutely brilliant. I've got to say, in terms of battery life, I was very impressed with its battery life. Considering it's an octa-core, considering it's a 3GB phone and a 5.5 inch at 1080p, this phone was absolutely sensational in terms of battery life. I've come across a few phones previously, and I've got to say this one definitely does take a really good stance on battery. Possibly one of the best phones I've come across in terms of battery. Really, really impressed. And on top of that, that was even using the power saving mode. So you know, do bear that in mind when looking at these battery stats. And of course, your usage might depend you know, greatly depending on what apps you use or how you use them. But generally speaking, I was very impressed with the battery life. I felt like at the end of the day I had to charge my phone, or sometimes I could get away with charging it at the end of my second day, depending on my usage. So I was very impressed with its battery life, and of course, just in case I needed it, I could always remove the battery and get another battery if needs be. So overall, guys, I was very impressed with this phone. I've got to say, very impressive. Just top to bottom, you know, software to hardware, it is very good, and I love what JIAYU have done over here. On top of that, it's a £130 phone. And put that into perspective, what you could actually get for a £130 phone, well, probably peanuts in terms of the smartphone industry. Really impressed with its specs, and I gotta say, guys, you gotta get this phone. It is really, really cool. The only negative sides I would say about this phone are, one, its camera, which is probably the biggest thing for me. Secondly, its software integration, the fact that you might need to flash it, or you know, you might need to feel comfortable with, you know, not having an update easily to download. And thirdly, I would say that just due to the fact that it might have limited support over time, just because it's a Chinese phone and therefore it's a Chinese branded phone. And fourthly, the fact that what you get in the box, it's not that great. You know, you get, I didn't even have a UK connector, although usually you should get a sort of adapter EU to UK, and you don't get any earphones or any fancy sort of things over there. So it is a £130 phone, so you should bear that in mind. But guys, I've got to say, I've been really impressed, and the fact that I've been using this as my daily driver and been super happy with it just goes to show that this phone can, you know, it is a phone that pleases me, therefore I would be very surprised if it doesn't please you. I used the Oppo Find 7 and I didn't like that. I used the LG G3, I didn't like that. I used the Samsung Galaxy S5, I wasn't impressed with that. S4, forget about it. S3, too super slow. You know, loads of phones out there, even the Sony range, I was like, meh, doesn't look that impressive, seems a bit sluggish. Even the HTC offerings, a little bit sluggish with their HTC Sense. But this phone, my god, £130, can't really go wrong. I know it's been a long review, but I thought I should mention everything and definitely go in depth about everything in there. Definitely check out the phone. Do let me know if you've got it or not, or if you're going to buy it. 100% recommendation from me. Yeah, I can't recommend it enough, guys. Top to bottom, brilliant phone. Alright guys, I've been totally dubbed. If you've liked this video, make sure you give it a like, subscribe if you want to see more, comment to let me know what you think about it, favourite and share if you'd like to share this with your friends or family. Alright guys, it's been the JIAYU S3 smartphone. I've been totally dubbed. Take care guys, bye bye.